Hi guys. Look at all of your faces. How's it going? Welcome to Thursday coaching call. Fun. How's everyone doing this week? Good. You want to pop in the chat one word to describe your week? Let's see here.
Wow, so many people in here.
Hey guys, I love that all of you hop in.
Early bird gets the worm, I guess, huh?
Hi. Happy Thursday.
You guys are like, 4:29.
We just hijacked Taylor. Taylor was doing some kind of intro and we missed it.
Oh yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. Hi, I just asked them one word to describe their week and then they tell them. Yeah.
I want to hear if they use an adjective or a verb.
Wait, pause.
Or an adverb.
You can read it. You can't hear it. You can read it. Real quick, for whoever wants to engage in this, will you unmute yourself and say hi?
Hi.
Hello.
Guys.
Hey, what's up?
Hi. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
I like it so much more. What sucks is like the boundaries that we have to have with these calls because the microphones compete with each other. And then most of the time we don't get to hear you guys talk and that's the worst. So that's my favorite.
I love that Madison Rose is just combing her hair.
Where's Madison?
So intently.
She lives in Maui, babe.
I felt like I was combing her hair for a second because she was so into it.
Madison lives in Maui. Did you know that?
You live in Maui?
She lives in Maui.
That's amazing.
Ooh, yeah, I was born and raised here. Super blessed.
You can hear
I see where you guys are. I'm just like, I know where they are. Like super creeper.
You can hear her a fan because she's sweating constantly. In old coaching calls, you guys, we had like 3 AC units happening in our house at the same time. And we'd be like bright red and sweating. And all you can hear is like in the background. Everyone would be like, I can't hear. There's this like weird noise coming through. And we're like, that's our AC. Thank you. We're sweating.
Madison, you're not a creeper. You just understand us very well.
Okay, wait. So the one word for this week was breakthrough. Love it. Overwhelming. That sucks. Anxiety. That's rough. Connection and progress. Wow. 3 words, but very good description. Revelation, exciting, numbness, relieving, hard, fulfilling, cold.
I have plenty of weeks where my word is numbness. I have plenty of weeks where my word is hard. I have plenty of weeks where my word is fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like everything you guys are saying, I'm like even now, after having worked through a lot of pain and having been really present and connected, still like it's up and down.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change.
It's a part of humanity. Yeah. I wish that there was this like destination and arrival point where everything just felt good, where we just felt like 100% at peace, 100% connected to ourselves and fulfilled. But I think part of humanity is the ebbs and flows and the wrestling of everything's not perfect. Everything's not complete. We're not all of the way fulfilled because we're on earth.
I think when I was in ministry school and like on this journey to be as close to Jesus as possible, I was always wondering, like, okay, well, what do you do with the pain? Like, what do you do with the disappointment? What do you do with the hopelessness? What do you do with the moments where I'm not connected to joy and peace? You just choose peace? You just choose joy? Or is there like a process to getting there? Like, is there actually a process to feeling pain? And that's honestly why we started what we started, is because we couldn't find resources where it was okay to just feel in a lot of aspects. And when
It's hard to accept humanity.
Yeah, the more I read about Jesus and the more that I experience him in my life, I see the ways that he actually let himself experience pain. I see himself experience the whole spectrum of emotions, but he didn't judge himself or shame himself for feeling those things. And oftentimes, I think if we grow up in a home, oftentimes that's very Christian, we have learned to shame ourselves for feeling negative emotions or feeling anything besides joy, peace, hope, joy. Like, I know I said joy twice, but like maybe that's because that's the one that
peace,
that was
hope,
one that
joy.
was really expected.
Your mom.
My mom.
His mom feels the need to always be good and always be happy. And if she's not happy, she shames herself and judges herself and thinks that there's something wrong with
everybody
her.
else around her, so the goal of this is to experience love, like actual unconditional love, in the midst of the conditions not being right or the conditions being right. It doesn't matter, but love shouldn't be actually we shouldn't be disconnected from love in the midst of whatever emotion that we're experiencing at the time.
Love shouldn't be contingent on us being at our peak state all of the time. And are you sharing more? I don't want to hijack.
I was just about to pray for them before we start the call.
I want to share before he prays. I have been going through so much wrestling this week, you guys, like so much wrestling that doesn't internally and emotionally, that doesn't feel like it has resolve. Now, there is resolve. First things first, there is resolve. And the second thing is, normally I experience pain and emotion and I can come to quick resolve because I have a lot of tools and I'm really self-aware, which feels like a huge gift. And that's what I'm actually excited to give you guys and invite you into. But there's not always quick resolve. But no matter how healthy you get, there's still wrestling. No matter how healthy you get and how self-aware you get, there's still going to be things that we work through that we don't have immediate answers for. I think there's always an invitation into more freedom, more healing, more surrender, more connection. And I genuinely don't believe there's ever a point in our lives that we come to having all the answers or not having struggle anymore. I think that happens in heaven. And that's the beauty of this process too, is like, yes, think about where you're at right now and what you're struggling with, and then partner with the belief that there's actually freedom from that. But once you get freedom from where you're at now, there's going to be a whole new set of things that you have to face and deal with, and a whole new set of solutions and healing and love that you can get connected to get resolved with that. And then there's going to be a whole new set of things that you have struggles with, and the process continues. But it's learning to find love, learning.
Heather Miles and Hannah Edwards, I saw their faces and I was like, they totally got that.
I know.
Like,
it looks like our
they got it.
connection. Wait,
I saw their faces.
how is our connection on a scale of 1 to 10? Will you throw in the chat box how it's going so far? Because I've seen like 2 freezes.
8,
6,
6,
8.
9,
A lot of 8s.
10,
Okay.
7, 8.
I feel better.
7.
If it's like a 7, 8, 9, 10, I feel confident with that. We might have a few breakups, but hopefully we're gonna make it through. But the point of this journey is to get you guys the tools where you feel empowered to navigate through your life and what you're like walking through and struggling with now. because those tools that you're going to get will translate into every area of your life. The goal isn't to get you 100% healed or just married or not in pain.
Or fix XYZ problem.
That might feel like a really desirable outcome for you, but it's not realistic because we're in a broken world and we're not fully connected to heaven and perfection yet. And so I want you guys to find resolve right now. Actually, I want you to close your eyes. Spence is going to pray for you guys in just a minute, but I want you to get really present with the things that you feel stuck in right now. I know there might be a long list.
Could be hopelessness, could be disappointment. It could be just dissociation, or like, I can't feel. I've tried so many times and I can't feel.
And like this week, I've felt this like underlying agitation inside of my gut. And I'm like racking my brain for what is going on with me. Is it that I don't feel settled with where we're living? Do I feel insecure in my friendships right now? Am I not having sex enough? Is it that my routine is off? Is it that I don't feel fulfilled? What is it? I'm racking my brain trying to get connected.
And if I could just find out that one thing, then everything else will fall into place, right?
But I want you to get present with like, what are the things that feel like are going wrong right now? It doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. It doesn't have to be accurate.
We're not going to judge you or draw conclusions if you're like, this is just all the stuff.
But get present with those emotions and the frustrations. And then I want you to see yourself standing in front of you. Look at her. She's struggling.
Look at the you that's having issues, that's having pain, that feels stuck. Look at her through a lens of like, she's actually a human.
And it might feel really, really hard to love her right now. You might feel a lot of shame and judgment for what you're walking through right now.
You might feel like she needs to have it all together, or she needs to get it right. If she could just get it right, then everything would be okay.
Or if she could be done with this pain, maybe you'd feel good again. But the truth is that girl in the thick of what she's processing through, all she needs is to feel loved and accepted right where she's at right now. Your freedom that you want isn't on the other side of being out of this struggle. It's not on the other side of you being out of pain. There is not a life without pain. I want you to say out loud right now, there is not a life without pain. There is not a life without struggle. There's not a relationship without disconnection. Perfection is a reality that doesn't exist. And that might hurt, but I'm okay with that.
I want you to look at the mystery. I want you to feel the mystery. I want you to connect with the mystery of your life, the unknown, the variety, the questions unanswered, looking forward. And I want you to actually say out loud, I let go of control. I surrender control over these things. It's not my job to control these things. I know I've tried so hard to control these things. I've tried so hard to get this right. I thought that if I could get this right, then people wouldn't leave me. I wouldn't feel alone. God wouldn't feel distant. Community wouldn't feel far away. I'd feel connected to purpose. But I don't think it's about me getting it right. I let go of having to get it right. I'm not actually my own savior. Jesus, I give you permission to be the one that gets it right. I just want to learn how to love. I want to learn how to connect with love. I want to learn how to be loved. I want to learn how to give love away. I don't want to be the one that gets it right.
And again, I want you to see yourself standing in front of you. And out loud, I want you to say your name. And I want you to say, I know you want to have everything figured out. I know you want to be in control. I know you really want to be out of pain. But the truth is that's not going to happen. But I'm going to learn to love you in the middle of it all. I'm going to learn to give you compassion in the middle of it all. Because that's all you've ever needed. And I'm sorry that, like mom and dad, I've been waiting for you to get it right before I celebrated you, before I connected with you, before I gave you the love that you needed or the compassion that you needed. I've been doing a really crappy job of loving you, but I want to learn how to, because you deserve unconditional love. Not because you earned it, but because that's what Jesus gave to you. And you're worthy of it. So right here and right now, I love you. I want you to say your name again. I choose you. And I understand what you're going through. And I know it's hard. But I'm going to be with you. And God's going to be with you. And you're not alone.
And just with your eyes closed, you don't have to repeat this, but I just want to say, like, you actually don't have to get this perfectly right. Connection and your heart being loved is not about you getting it right. I just want to say your heart is so loved right now, whether you've been able to experience it or not. Your heart deserves and craves so much love, and it was meant to crave love. It was meant to not feel alone. And in the ways your heart has felt alone in your process, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry for the ways that you felt alone and isolated, and like nobody else gets you. Like nobody else understands your problems or your pain. I'm so sorry for the ways that you grew up in your family or in your family dynamics or with your parents, believing that you had to perform in order to be loved. I'm so sorry for the ways that the only ways you knew how to protect yourself from abandonment and rejection were to get it right. If I could just get all the external things or behaviors right, then I would be loved. Then people wouldn't run away. People wouldn't create distance. I wouldn't have to hide. I wouldn't have to keep things secret. And the ways that you felt like, I have to hide this behavior, I have to hide this part of my life because nobody would get it. Nobody would understand this if they actually saw this part of my life. I want to let you know that God sees that, and he actually understands the heart behind it. He actually understands the pain. He sees what you went through. He sees the loss. He sees the pain you went through in child. He doesn't see you as an adult that's fucking it up. He sees you as a child. He sees you in the ways that you have deficits and pain. And he loves you, and he's there with you. And God, right now, I just speak over every woman that they would experience your love. They would experience your intimacy right now on this call, in this time, that God, in like right now, more than they ever have, that they would experience you.
And we just pray that there would be a tangible wave of your presence and your nearness, that women would encounter you, that you would meet them right where they're at, that regardless of if their specific need gets met or their specific question gets answered, that you would show them how you want to be the meter of their needs, that you're ultimately the one that's near to them, that you're ultimately the only one that will never disappoint them. Even if that doesn't feel true to them, God, we ask that you would reveal to them how you are the ultimate meter of their needs, that your unconditional love is perfect and that you will never actually let them down. Show them how near you are to them tonight, Jesus. We love you. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, I love that. I feel like Spencer spoke directly to me.
If you need to take like a really, really deep breath, like I totally encourage you to do it. I know it sounds crazy, but like if you need to take a big deep breath, just let some stuff go.
Breathing, we do breath work every morning.
Every morning.
Breathing actually is the thing that brings you like present and connected into your body. That gets you not disassociated, that gets you associated, and it actually trains your parasympathetic nervous system, which means it gets you out of stress, aka fight or flight, and into rest. So any kind of like breath work that you do, it actually just plugs you back in and gets your body into a rested state. And I'll just tell you firsthand, it's so much easier to get connected to God when you're connected to yourself. So don't be afraid of what connection with yourself looks like. There's a lot of weird judgments and stereotypes around like the new age. And there's a lot of Christians that are afraid of getting out of the box and being woo woo or new age. But actually, like, God created us to be beings that are connected to ourselves, connected to him, and connected to people. So there's no demons in being connected to yourself. Like, you getting connected to yourself is actually just a gift that opens the door for you to be more connected to God.
I see so many new age people, and you know, like I just look at them and I'm like, oh, you're just a little child that's craving Jesus, and you're using all the disciplines, but you're actually just so hoping to meet the one that created goodness, the one that created breath, the one that created meditation, the one that created goodness and love. And you're trying to do all the things, but you're still missing the creator. You know, like I don't think that meditation and breath work and all that stuff is owned by the devil. I think that the devil tries to imitate and recreate and take things, but ultimately breath was given by God. Breath was given to man that created life, you know, and for us, it's really needed, especially in Western culture. We fall so deeply into the logical side of our brains that we need to experience our emotions. We've been so shamed for feeling anger, pain, sadness, disappointment, when it's like God actually is like, I want to be there in the midst of you feeling emotions. I want you to feel love in the midst of those emotions. And so that's where we're coming from. And you honestly just need more space and compassion in the midst of that.
And if any of you struggle with anxiety or depression or fatigue and exhaustion or feeling like spinny and disoriented or overwhelmed in your brain, I think breath work is a huge gift to do.
I
And-
need it every day. I
and
literally need to do it every day.
You can literally look up YouTube videos on breath work and they'll like walk you through it. It's such like, it's honestly phenomenal. You could do Wim Hof, WIMHOF. I think that's how you spell it.
You'll all be able to hold your breath for a really long time if you do Wim Hof.
We can hold
so
our
that's
breath for
cool.
like 3.5 minutes, guys. We'll just okay, we're gonna get started. How are you guys feeling though? I'm reading through some of these comments, and Christian said, I just felt the anxiety I've been feeling the past few days just melt away. I love that. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but Marceline said that just straight up pierced my heart. I love that. There's a lot of really good comments in this, but it's important to note how you feel before something and how you feel after something, so that you can educate yourself on what actually helps you, whether it's breath work or prayer or getting connected or whatever it is. Take notes so that you can get self-aware of like, oh, I actually feel way more connected after blank. Learn yourself so you can learn how to take care of yourself. But we're gonna jump into some questions now. You guys ready for that? Let me throw a thumbs up if you are. Yeah. Okay.
Hey.
Yay.
I want to see all of your thumbs right now. I'm just kidding.
You better put your Becca's like.
Maria was like, fine, okay.
Aw. Also, I don't remember who it was, but they said that they missed seeing you.
You guys missed me?
Oh, you know what we haven't done actually is welcome the new ladies and let Tay do her intro. So let's do that real quick.
Cool.
If you're new, would you throw in the chat box and say, I'm a newbie? And then welcome. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for choosing into this journey. If you haven't been welcomed yet, I'm glad that we're your first intro. Okay.
So it's like Heather Miles, Lindsay
Elizabeth.
Grove.
And Becca, and wait, how do you say this? Where it's the U. It disappeared.
Unekwu.
Unekwu. I love your name. I think I slaughtered it. But welcome. And Victoria and Kala, I'm gonna guess. Dawn and Christina and Galaxy S9 Plus. That's my favorite, is when people's name isn't in
Galaxy
Zoom.
X9 Plus. Good to see you again.
And Marissa and Amanda and Crystal, Michelle, we're so glad to have you. I think there's probably a few more of you that I'm missing. Allison and Stephanie and Marceline and Megan and Breezy, who's new-ish, and Ariel and Talia and Ashley and Ramilla. I'm done. We're so glad to have you. Seriously, thank you for trusting us. I hope that you enjoy your time with us. I hope it's crazy life-changing, and I hope that you milk it for all it's worth. And then Tay, if you want to jump in and give a little intro for them, that'd be amazing.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, guys. Yay, yay. Okay, so yeah, if you are being coached, if they pick your question, we just ask that you give them the meat and potatoes. And then if they have any questions they want to ask you, then they can ask you for more clarity. And then lastly, for everyone else on the call, hi, Marceline. For everyone else on the call, if whoever's being coached, if that question resonates with you, just go ahead and receive it for yourself. And yeah, we'll get started.
We missed coaching together, so we had to make out for a minute.
Beauties.
I miss coaching with him. He's like my other half. It's so fun. For those of you who are new, he's been alternating with Abby Stumval. If you don't know her, you will soon. But they've been alternating, and she's phenomenal and a powerhouse. And if you've seen her, you love her. But he's my husband, and I love coaching with him.
Thanks, Margaret.
He's just so precious.
I've been working with my brother and with Justin Stumval, and we're planning out a men's program. And so I'm taking some time off to focus on men, because I'm sure y'all want to meet some good, healthy men.
Yes.
That are wanting to work on themselves, get healthy.
Here's the thing. We need a women's program and then a men's program, and then have a program where all of y'all can come together and find emotionally healthy men so that you don't feel alone in this process.
And
Yes.
honestly,
I know.
like having two.
Also, we have to hurry.
Yeah, we'll have to hurry. But having two groups of people, men and women, that have paid a price, not just monetarily, but with time, energy, process,
Yes.
working on themselves, they deserve each other.
Yes.
You know, and so that's what we want to create. And I've never seen that before. And so that's our goal.
That's our goal. Okay, we're gonna be quick and not bring that to a closure. Is Megan Goodrow here?
Megan?
Megan Goodrow, she's in week 2.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Megan.
Hello. I had a funny feeling I was going to get called on.
You're the one.
Where-
You're the first one.
Where do you live, by the way?
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Nice. How's life during the pandemic?
Well, I live by the beach, so I live in South Jersey, not like the city. So in the summertime, just felt normal.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. But now I'm ready for it to be summer again because I mean, there's nothing really that's like closed, but obviously like there's no big groups and you can't sit down in places. So yeah.
I feel yeah. Well, thanks for your question. I saw your question was why is it hard to open up and share needs inside of a relationship?
Yes.
Are you in a relationship?
No. I meant like and relationships in general and like family relationships. Or
Do you feel like your normal mode of operation is to just not share needs and take care of everybody else's needs? Okay.
yes.
Is it kind of like if I can make sure that I show up for everybody else, then hopefully my needs will just get taken care of and I'll be good?
I think there's definitely part of that. Also, well, do you want me to share or do you have more questions? Okay.
More focused on what you're
Definitely that what you said. There's also like, how do I word it? If I meet your needs, then you will love me and maybe you'll meet mine.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
That
Makes
makes
sense.
it total. Yeah. makes
Can
a lot
you
of
just
sense.
wave at the camera for any of you who resonate with that? Yeah.
So like
Ooh.
pretty much almost everybody.
It's either like a Christianity thing or we were neglected in our childhood thing or an Enneagram 2 thing. We don't know. Megan, do you know your Enneagram by chance?
I did take it after I did whatever week it was, and it said 7 was like I think 7 was the top, but there was one right. It was like I was 70% 7 and then like 60%. I can't remember what that one was though.
That's cool.
Lots of 2s in here though.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's a very real experience for an Enneagram 2 who's like the helper and feels the need to tend to everyone's needs.
I mean, I'm a 3, which is an achiever. And I still resonate a lot with what you said, Megan.
And I'm a 7, and I also feel the need to take care of everyone else's needs.
Just some initial thoughts. I think for one thing, I just want to say like there's just to disarm a little bit of shame. I think it's something that is a normal family culture, especially in the States and especially in Christian culture, where it's commonly expected that if you just shut down your needs and take care of everybody else around you, then you'll be taken care of.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know it until our needs don't get met, that we're actually using that as manipulation. You know, like in Christianity, and I'll explain. I'll explain.
Okay.
I'll just explain.
Subconsciously and not with a bad intention.
There's zero bad intention in it. Like for me, I grew up in ministry, and when I met God and when I was 18, I just was like, okay, the goal now is to die to myself and love everybody around me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And every time I read scripture, it's more of what I hear from the pulpit, which is die to yourself. Your needs don't matter. Take care of everybody else. And you're selfish if you focus on yourself. There's like this underlying kind of belief system in there.
Yeah.
And then you get to this point where the more you love and love and love and love and give away, you're like, I'm still craving something, but I don't know how to get it. And somehow it keeps ending up in these ways where I have these big blow up emotions, or like for me, I have these big resentments, or
Yeah.
typically it was the closest people. So
Yeah.
like that I did life with most closely, that I had the biggest emotions with, so it's like, why aren't you doing this? Or like, it's every relationship that I was in romantically, I would get to like week 4 or 5 and I would start having big emotions. And I couldn't understand why I was always the giver and the lover, and why I kept feeling neglected, or I kept feeling pain. Do you resonate with anything I'm saying so far?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm like shaking my head to everything you're saying.
And I want to ask Megan real quick before we move forward, why are you asking this question?
Why am I asking this question? Because I see a pattern, 2 major things, but I see a pattern in like most of my relationships. The pattern being when I was so about 10 or 11 years ago, my mom started dating. So I was raised by a single mom, just her and I. So my mom started dating, and I just felt like super pushed aside and forgotten about. And it was like my whole family unit. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I had zero I couldn't even, I was like, I guess I'm not okay. I didn't even know how to explain it, but I had like big blow up emotions on the inside, didn't know how to communicate it. Now, after like years of counseling, I can look back. But anyway, now currently in a different with a spiritual mother, I feel the same things. I'm like, I can't, I don't know why I'm having, it just feels like this wall that I'm coming up against, that it almost feels like wrong. I feel like there's something wrong with me, which I know that it's not true, but it's how I'm feeling. There's something wrong with me for like wanting certain things or wanting to emotionally connect. And
Wow.
so anyway, that's kind of the basis of the question, but I've also seen it in other relationships, but those were like the 2 things.
And I know that you grew up with a single mom and then she started dating, and inside you were like, what the F is going on? I can imagine that you felt like, man, he's getting the attention that I'm needing right now. Do you remember ever feeling, and that's just an assumption, but do you ever remember feeling like there's not space for me to get my needs met and for me to just be mothered?
Like back then, did I ever remember feeling that? I may have subconsciously, I can't remember specifically thinking that.
Yeah.
I just remember feeling like not important, pushed aside. So probably what you're saying, I just didn't have those thoughts to it.
And those are pivotal things for all of us. There are really what can seem like minute things that happened in our childhood that we don't have huge emotions about or subconscious thoughts about or anything that we're aware of.
Mm.
We have these feelings like, I'm not important, I don't matter,
Belief systems.
I'm not loved, I'm not enough. These tiny subconscious messages that get sent to us. And that's how we know that we have massive pain. Really important to be able to put language to what are the things in my childhood that happened and what are the messages that were communicated to me.
Yeah.
What was my mom's intention? Because Megan, your mom's intention was not to neglect you.
Yeah.
I'm sure she had an amazing heart and did her best to care for you and love you. That's not always the case.
But what's the message she sent to you by her actions and behaviors?
And by her imperfections.
Yeah.
So our parents are responsible for the things still that they couldn't fulfill in us. But I want you to share, Megan, what were you saying?
yeah, as you were talking, I just remembered another piece of it. I grew up in church, and a church where no one talked about the way that they felt. Like I remember I didn't realize that people struggled after they got a divorce until I was like out of that church. I mean, people would get divorced, but no one ever talked about anything. So I literally, like, it sounds crazy now. I had no idea. So,
Yep.
I wonder if someone got unmuted.
Hey, Taylor, can you make it?
We got it. We're good. Cool.
okay. Yeah. So I think I also had an understanding that my feelings were wrong because no one talked about the way that they felt. So I was like, what's wrong with me? I'm having all these feelings. Yeah. So I think that was definitely part of it.
Yeah, it creates this aloneness. Like,
Yeah.
struggling after divorce, but I'm struggling and I'm the byproduct of divorce and I have all of this pain. So now I feel alone in what I'm experiencing because no one else is sharing about anything.
Because in Christianity,
Makes a lot of sense.
because in Christianity, you're great if you don't have bad emotions and you just feel joy, peace, love, and all the good stuff. And so
Exactly.
get rid of all the bad stuff.
Exactly.
Megan, and for anyone else who's connecting with this, I want you to get connected to it. So your question is, why is it hard to open up and share needs inside a relationship?
Yeah.
I want you to close your eyes. I want you to get connected with the reality of what your childhood was like, which is that dad's gone. And for any of you who are resonating with this, I want you to think about your scenario and what's true for you.
Could be mom was gone or dad was gone, or so one of them was neglectful or wasn't around.
But for Megan, that's dad's gone and mom's here and mom's single and now mom's dating. And the message that I'm getting from what's happening in my life is that I'm not important, that I don't matter, that because I'm getting the message that I'm not important and I don't matter, that tells me that my needs don't get matter. Wow. My needs don't get met is what I meant to say. That was a great, someone quote me on that. That my needs don't get met. That I'm not important, so I won't get taken care of. That I'm not important, so it doesn't make sense to voice my needs. How could I communicate to someone that I love what my needs are, what my wants are? How can I have real connection if I can't communicate what my needs are? Now I feel alone in this because I just am stuck in this cycle of feeling like I don't matter and I'm not important and I can't communicate my needs. And because I can't communicate my needs because I'm not important, they're never going to get met. And now I feel stuck in this vicious cycle of aloneness. And now I feel trapped in relationships because even with people that want to love me, I don't know how to let them in. It feels too risky. I'm too afraid of rejection. I'm too afraid of someone not having time for me. I'm too afraid of someone not responding and wanting to meet my needs. I'm too afraid of appearing as being needy or demanding. And it feels daunting to think of anyone thinking of me as needy. So I might as well just shut everything down. And now, if I shut everything down, I feel so alone and I don't know what to do. And Megan, I want you to connect with that little girl. And for anyone else who's connecting with this, I want you to connect with your little girl and the pain that she was going through in her childhood. No matter how insignificant it may seem, it was really real. Megan, connect with that little girl that felt like, man, mom's dating and I'm on the back burner. My dad's already gone. It doesn't feel safe to get my needs met. Kids are supposed to be, this is the weird reality, kids are supposed to be the center of attention. It's kind of narcissistic in our childhood, but it helps with healthy development. It helps with knowing our worth and our value. And when we don't get that, we grow up insecure, meaning no matter what I do, I can't feel secure in my existence because I didn't know that I mattered from a young age. I didn't know that I was wanted from a young age. Or maybe for you is I didn't know that I was loved, or I didn't know that I was important. All of those different beliefs mattered. And Megan, I want you to see that little girl. And for those of you, I want you to see that little girl that felt so insecure. And I want you to just say out loud, little Megan, you're important.
Little Megan, you're important.
And I know it didn't feel like it,
And I know it didn't feel like it,
but your needs mattered.
but your needs mattered.
And not only that,
Not only that,
but your wants mattered.
but your wants mattered.
And your desires mattered.
And your desires mattered.
And they were so important.
And they were so important.
They were important for your development.
They were important for your development.
And it makes so much sense
It makes so much sense
that it would feel so scary
that it would feel so scary
to let anyone else into your needs,
to let anyone else into your needs,
because you've believed for a long time
because you've believed for a long time
you weren't important.
that you weren't important.
But the truth is that you are important.
But the truth is that you are important.
And it's my job to communicate that to you now,
And it's my job to communicate that to you now,
over and over again if I need to.
over and over again if I need to.
And I want you to ask little Megan if there's anything else that she needs from you. And for anyone else, I want you to ask your little girl if there's anything else that she needs from you. And Megan, whenever you feel like you can hear or feel or see or sense an answer, I want you to share with me.
Yeah, I automatically saw her open up her arms. Well, she said love, and then she opened up her arms and was like, I need a hug.
Oh.
Did you give her a hug?
Yes.
Megan, I want to ask you, have you ever connected with your little girl before?
I have. It's like maybe once or twice, but it's not like a common practice of mine.
I love that. It's so fun to see, regardless of how many connections it's been, how quick that connection and awareness came into play.
Yeah.
Because the question you asked originally was, how do I share my needs in relationship? But what's driving your belief system of that's not an option is that the belief system is I don't matter in relationships.
Yeah. I realized that as you guys were talking, I was like, oh, here's the problem.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everybody else too? Like if you can throw in the chat, like, does that make sense? So the belief system.
Your belief system might be different. Yours could be I don't matter. Megan's could be I'm not important. Mine was I'm not enough, which is why my needs aren't getting met.
So there's this belief system that's been a driver ever since you were a child, right? I don't matter. I didn't matter with the most important person in my world. I didn't feel like I mattered to them.
Can I share one thing?
Oh, yeah.
Real quick? Maybe I guess I didn't share the details. So it was when I was 17. So I did feel important until then. And then it was like everything got ripped away.
Yeah.
So.
But that's important too, because it's almost like when you turn 17, now does that invalidate every time before that I felt important?
Or like what stays and how do I know that this is actually going to stay?
It creates abandonment, because I had this thing where I had so much secure love from my mom until I was 14, and then it was all ripped away.
Yeah.
And it never came back again. So it created this abandonment of like my needs will be met for so long, and then it'll be gone and they'll never come back.
I painfully
sucks.
relate.
Yeah. And my parents were always around. But now, like as I started processing pain into my mid-20s, I started recognizing, oh my gosh, dad was around, but he wasn't around.
Yeah.
Like he was there, and he was a Christian. He loved God. He led us in a lot of the ways of the Lord, but he was at medical sales rep 4 days out of the week. When he was home, he was drunk on the couch, and I didn't know it. There's like all these different areas where I had to process, oh my gosh, there is pain of abandonment, but I didn't recognize it.
Mhm.
But you're unpacking something that was a belief system that was real. So regardless of how that belief system was formed, that belief system exists in your world, which is in relationships, I don't matter. My feelings and my wants and desires don't matter. So why would I ever share my needs? Why would I ever mention to people that I have needs or desires if they really at the core don't matter, and I will never back them up? And especially when they don't back them up, I'm not gonna have those. I'm gonna be like, yep, totally, because I want connection more than anything.
So I want to directly answer your question now after taking you through that nice merry-go-round. It's really important to recognize the beliefs that are driving us, because when we can recognize the belief that even if it's subconscious that's driving us, we can actually tend to that need. And over time, the fruit of that it'll be easy to invite someone in to meet your needs, because once you know that you're important and that you mattered, it'll be like a given for you to invite someone in. And so my deep answer is take care of that little girl and remind her and be compassionate with her and validate her in, it makes so much sense that you've believed for a long time that you don't matter. But
Or
you're
sorry.
say that again.
Or that no one cared. That was coming to my mind when you were talking.
That's awesome.
It makes so much sense that you believe that no one cared and that reality was really real for you. But the truth is that I care. And then you might need to put emphasis on like, God, do you care about me?
Yeah.
Do I matter to you? Show me how important I am to you. And you might need to get fresh words from him to feel full in that. And that's a beautiful aspect of it too.
Mm-hmm.
But get connected. Like, it's really important to know what our core bad beliefs are so that we can tend to them a lot with ourselves in connection and with connection with God.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, once you pour into that bank of like, I'm important, I matter, God cares about me, I'm going to care for me, and I'm going to prove it to myself by taking time for myself. Then it'll be easy when you're with a spiritual mom,
Mm-hmm.
be with her and be like, I really want to invite you into this, but you're doing it with like, I know that I matter. I know that you care about this and I care about this. So I'm going to invite you into this because I know it's valuable.
Mm-hmm.
That will be easy once you've actually addressed the wound. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes total sense. And while you were talking, I was realizing, I'm like, this is why I feel disconnection to God. Which was part of the reason I joined it, because I'm like, what is going on? Yeah.
I've projected my pain onto God
Mm-hmm.
because I've felt a deficit, and he must be responsible since he's all powerful.
Or like freaking, I'm like crying out here, and I mean, there's so many examples over years where I'm like I'm telling you, I'm dying here, and then it's like, oh well, get up and keep doing it. That's how it felt.
You're very self-aware. I love how even as we're sharing, you're like, oh, I'm putting everything together. This is making so much sense now.
And you're only on week 2.
I've done counseling for like 8 years or something.
Yeah,
makes sense.
totally.
You're able to connect all
There's
of
been
the
a
dots.
process for you.
Yeah.
I'll keep it short and just say like tend to that little girl part of your heart, because and this is for everyone. We had a consultant that we worked with who said, when you're in your healing process, it'll feel like there's 1,000 stones, meaning like 1,000 like parts of your healing process that will need to be overturned. But the reality is that there's
there's 1,000 things I need to work through.
But the reality is there's like 2 things that everything is tied to. Megan could be like, I'm not important and no one cares. Mine was like, I'm not enough. So we all have like two things that are going to probably be a really big
Like our
theme.
biggest triggers or belief systems.
They're going to be a big theme because of our childhood pain. And it's not bad. And we're not stunted in our growth process. And we're not dysfunctional because we have to keep visiting these two things. It's beautiful to be like, oh, these are my two things. And I might get triggered 7 times a week and then come back to, oh, it's just the same familiar thing that I've visited 100 times before. But now I'm going to tend to those things with love and compassion instead of trying to get rid of them or fix them.
Can I ask you guys a question? Okay. So obviously you've been doing this for years and getting connected to yourself. So whatever those two things are for you guys, has it gotten like when you get triggered in those same two things, is it less, I don't know the word, less yeah, like doesn't throw you off, maybe throws you off for a second instead of a day?
It's shorter and shorter and shorter as the years go by. So like now I might get spun out and then I'm like, oh, I'm dealing with my self-hatred again. And it's easier for me to get to the place where I love myself sometimes in like 2 minutes, sometimes in an afternoon, where before it'd spin me out for a month or two.
It feels a lot less high stakes. Before it was like my biggest one was attached to I'm really bad and broken. So mine was always connected to, oh my gosh, I'm a really bad person because I have something that's wrong or imperfect or something. So everything felt high stakes. And everything was attached to the way I grew up Baptist, which was, and now my eternal salvation is connected to it. And so I had massive pain when it came to messing up anything. You know, but now it's just like, oh, that's funny. I'm still working through that. Cool. You know,
The more love, compassion you throw at it, the quicker the process goes.
Thank you for sharing. It's encouraging.
You're doing a good job, Megan. Did that feel
Great job.
helpful for you? You feel like
Yeah, it really did. I feel like the exact 1,000 stone, that's how I felt about this. Like there's a million things and you narrowed it down and made it really simple.
good. I'm glad. You're
That's
doing a
awesome.
good job.
Thank
Keep-
you.
Little girl just needs a lot of love.
I agree.
We love you, girl. Thanks for sharing with us.
You.
And would you ladies just wave the camera if you feel like you got anything out of that or resonated with it? Yeah.
Can you throw in the chat actually, like what was the thing that stood out most to you? Like it can just be something specific. Like what was the thing that was like, oh, that was actually something I needed, or this was something that was helpful, or if you could just throw that in the chat, just something that was valuable for you.
And then I want to pause after that and I want to ask you one more question. Wait, pause.
I was just reading their stuff because
But-
there's a lot.
But I know, but pause. And now, after you guys throw that in the chat, I want you to write down, what do you feel like your 2 stones are? What are the 2 beliefs that I've struggled with the most that feel like that familiar narrative to me? And you might feel like you're like just swinging the bat where you're like, I don't know. I just started this journey. I don't feel connected. I don't feel self-aware, but I'm just going to try.
Could be 1, 2, 3 things. Don't limit yourself to just 2. Like,
Oh, I'm not worth the time or effort. Not enough, not chosen, not valued or enough. I'm bad, broken, unloved.
and as you're writing those things down, like think about how you've carried that into your life or your relationships, like your relationship with God. Think about how that belief system affects your relationship with God, the way you approach him, the way you approach him in prayer, the way you approach him in relationship. Think about how the way you approach yourself with that belief system. Does that belief system affect the way that you take care of yourself or love yourself, interact with yourself? Is God loving you a lot more than you're loving yourself? Are you putting a stiff arm towards God's love because you don't believe you deserve it? You know, how does that affect, how does that belief system you wrote down or you're thinking about, how does that affect the way that you date or you show up in friendships? Right? Like think about those things. Those 1 or 2 stones that you're unturning. How does that affect the way that you do a lot of other things? How does it affect the way that you protect yourself in relationships or show up in relationships? Does it affect those things?
These are good responses.
Do you not
guys.
share what you want or need because you don't believe you deserve it?
These are really, really good.
Do you believe God wants to create distance, but you're actually not running towards him at all? Or you don't actually believe he loves you, so what's the point of even engaging with him? Has he been loving you the whole time, but you just don't believe that it's true or accurate or real? How do our belief systems affect those relationships?
Okay, guys, we're gonna jump to the next question. Are you cool with that?
No, absolutely.
We're gonna jump to the next question. I'm loving these responses.
I
as they're
know
coming in.
there's
They're
a
so good.
lot of really good stuff you guys put in there. I was reading, I'm like, geez, it's really good stuff. Really good reflection.
Is Stacy Gross here?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Hello.
There you are. Hi, Stacy.
Hi. How's it going, guys?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm relaxed, laying on my couch, my candle. I'm good.
I was thinking that pillow looks really beautifully textured and
It
comfortable.
is. And the best part is God totally gifted it to me through my landlord's daughter-in-law and son-in-law or son. So like I didn't have a couch and I didn't have any furniture and they totally gifted it to me. So it's even better.
That's great.
Your landlord is in the top 0.1 percentile of landlords.
Right. He's a Christian, so I definitely I lucked out on that one for sure.
So Stacy, you wrote in and you were saying that you're feeling severely triggered around your ex and the inability to
Nope.
move. Oh,
Nope.
wrong one.
Wrong one. Did you want to ask someone else?
I highlighted one and then I read the wrong one.
That's okay. If you want to ask the other question, that's okay.
You said you're wondering why you can want someone to fight for you who you decided to not have close relationship with. It says you chose to distance yourself and then you felt rejected by them in the long haul, and you'd love coaching on why this response is coming out of you. You want to share anything else about that?
And
Yeah. So I had someone who I thought was a friend, and then the more I started getting healthy, and I've been saved for about like 5 years. So the more I started growing in my relationship with God, and then my best friend came into my life, and I like started really learning what true friendship was. The more I learned that this other friendship was more based on like mutual flattery. And so I was like, well, and there were some things that happened that were kind of hurtful. And so I kind of started pulling away a little bit, but anytime, oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you. Anytime she'd reach out and stuff, I would still respond, but it was weird because we just kind of like she stopped reaching out, and I was honestly relieved because it was a really unhealthy relationship, and I was seeing a lot of patterns that were similar to my mom, who struggles with narcissism. And so I was like, man, this isn't healthy for me. But then I got really triggered the other day because she commented on my best friend's wedding pictures, and I had this like big reaction, and I was like, where is that coming from? And I felt, because I haven't missed her, and I felt healthier not having her as a friend, but I was like really triggered, and I felt like almost like, well, how come you can go and write on my best friend's wall, but like you never asked me what happened with our friendship? Like you never even fought for it. It was like once I started becoming who I really was, then it was like, oh, well, okay, Stacy, you don't flatter me in the way I want to anymore. Or you don't like, almost like I felt very used and discarded. Like, okay, you're not meeting my needs anymore. So like, okay, I'm just gonna ditch you now, even though. So yeah, it's a weird thing where like I'm not sad that we're not friends anymore, but I still feel rejected, and it's like I wanted her to fight for me, even though I didn't want the relationship. And I'm like, that's just super confusing to me because I'm like, why am I wanting that when I feel better not having having her in my life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I just want to ask to the group real quick. Who else can relate to this? Can you just say like, oh, I totally relate?
I felt like this with Spencer when we were friends.
Mm,
I've also felt like this with girlfriends as well.
There's a lot of people in the chat, Stacy, by the way. They're
wow. I see it. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
It's really common, and ultimately it's like, okay, I want to not let people's opinions or the way that they do relationship to affect me, and so I'm going to do my best to just not let that happen. And so I'll move on.
Or logic my way
Right.
out of it.
Exactly.
Or have good beliefs and belief myself out of the pain.
If I can guess what they're going through, then and it doesn't involve me in that story that I kind of logic myself into, then I don't have to feel the pain of rejection or abandonment.
Right.
Like I might feel rejected or abandoned by this person, but if I create enough space, or if I logic myself into, no, I'm a great person, or like whatever, we just try and go, okay, I'm going to play the game in my head where this has nothing to do with me.
Right.
So it's like every time I see this person, it's a flashback into I feel rejected and abandoned.
Right.
Or I feel like I'm not chosen, or I feel like I don't matter to a person that I chose, that I invested myself into, that I let affect me. It's still poking on something like in relationships, it's poking on belief systems, like relationships, especially close relationships.
And belief systems also meaning deep wounds. Because
totally.
From our deep wounds, we create belief systems.
Right.
Most deep wounds come from childhood, mom and dad, things that were like, okay, I grew up believing I didn't matter. So now every relationship I get into or someone pulls away, it triggers that thing of like, I don't matter. Or
Right.
someone created distance when I did something wrong, it triggers that I'm the problem and they don't want me and I'm not wanted.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, I thought I moved on from this friendship, but for some reason, every time I see her loving somebody else, it triggers me feeling like, what the heck? Why didn't I get your time? Why didn't I get your affirmation? Why didn't I get your attention?
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like, I think the wound for me, and like it's happened in several situations, and like it sucks too because it happens with my best friend a lot, because she's just like, she's amazing and she like loves God. She's just an amazing woman. So like I understand why people want to be around her, because she just loves so well, and literally, like as cliche as it sounds, like she loves like Jesus. And she's real. Like I can totally understand why people want to be around her. And but it's like I can remember, for instance, we had this mutual friend, and she had a play and my best friend couldn't go, and I went and I like got her a card and I got her flowers, and like I showed up and I was really wanting to support her. And then it's like what she got emotional about was the fact that my best friend signed the card. And like, and I didn't do these things to like have her be like, wow, thank you, Stacy, for bringing these cards. But there was no like it's like that didn't mean anything to her. And it's like the visual I get is that they're like, Stacy, like get out of the way. Like this is the person I really want to get to, and I just want you to get there, or like you're in the way. Like that's how I feel, where it's like, yeah, rejected, not chosen, in the way, like the person that people want to go to get to the person they really want to talk to. And it's like, yeah, even talking about it now, it's just like, oh, it's painful.
I hear inside, like what I can hear underneath all of that is this core belief that I'm not wanted.
Yes.
And it sounds very familiar to me because it's been one of my core bad beliefs. And what happens with beliefs is our brain actually looks for evidence of why it's true.
Because the reality is, right, what could happen is your friend might represent something to that person that they're like, I'm craving this, right? But then your friend could show up and they could be like, oh, I don't need that thing anymore. Or your friend could have pain, and all of a sudden that person is like, oh, I don't want to be around your friend anymore. But for that moment, for some reason, your friend maybe represented affirmation or affection or belief in them or belonging. And so in reality, they're like, I may not even love Stacy's friend more than her, but she represents something that I'm craving,
Right.
that I'm needing in that season. But it actually is not a story about Stacy at all. It's just a story of my deficit.
And
That's good.
fully healthy, which is not the real world. If you're fully healthy and fully connected, you'd be able to see that in those different moments. But because there's a wound that still needs love, all you can see is that wound that's like, I don't feel wanted. I don't feel like I matter. I don't feel desired by this person. I feel rejected. And actually, you guys, triggers, like in those moments, are a massive gift to us because our triggers
Mm,
are teachers. Our triggers
right.
are healers of what needs to be healed.
Mm,
And if we can get aware, like for me, there's a lot of moments, especially in marriage, that my wound of not feeling wanted. It has nothing to do with Spencer, but that wound gets hit in marriage all the time.
mm,
And it has everything to do with my childhood
right.
and how often I felt not wanted and how that was the message that was communicated to me over and over again. But the more that I actually can get present with, like, oh, this is my pain. This has nothing to do with me not being wanted in friendship. This has nothing to do with me not being wanted in my marriage or not wanted by men or not wanted in dating relationships. This has everything to do with my childhood wound. And the more I can get present and feel that, the more I can heal that.
Mm-hmm.
I want you guys to write this down. What we don't feel, what we don't feel, we don't heal. What we don't feel, we don't heal. So the more that you get accustomed to your pain and proactively make time to feel it and grieve it and mourn it and work it out of your body and your being, the more that wound will actually have the time and space it needs to heal. But feeling gives that
Mm-hmm.
proper attention and care that it needs. And if we keep living our life, which most of us do until you sign up for a program called Come Alive that you found on the internet, what most of us do is we try to fix it and numb it and find the next exciting thing and order the next really good drink and get on the next good dating app and do the next thing that feels satisfying and exciting and fulfilling so that we can forget about that wound. And then that wound stays there and it festers and it gets worse over time.
Or we fix it with a relationship.
It doesn't work. So you getting present and accustomed to, like, oh, this is my I'm not wanted wound. That little girl started feeling this a long time ago. When was that? What was she going?
Well, I would say because um, I'm definitely a feeler, like, Havilah Cunnington's prophetic personalities. Like, I'm a feeler for sure. And it's like, it wasn't until recently that I've had language to put towards how I always felt. So, I mean, ever since I can remember, but I'm realizing like in the last couple of years, I started noticing that like the healthier I got and the more I was growing with God, like I realized, which I know my mom, like she has her own pain and like is doing the best that she can, but like there was a lot of control and manipulation and like she wanted me to always like be out in front and like be famous and like anytime if I wanted to sing or dance or act, just like even like I was on the worship team and it was like, well, okay, but like if you're not going to be famous with it, then like what's the point? And I'm like, because God gave me the voice and like I am using it, I'm worshiping him. And like I remember being so terrified to like drop out of my acting class because it was like, oh no, like my mom's going to be so mad. And this is as like a 31-year-old, like I was terrified. And so I started like trying to have conversations, but so it's like I always felt rejected. Like it was almost like she knew who I really was and didn't like it. And so she was always trying to be like, oh, I want you to be this. I want you to be that. And like, I'm realizing like it's almost the exact opposite of everything that she wanted. I'm like, none of that was me. I'm like, no wonder why I was miserable for so many years.
You know what it was is at the root, and the narrative might be different than this, but an example of that is your mom felt so inadequate and felt like a failure in her own life and felt like she so wasn't enough that she had this kid. Maybe my kid can be the star. Maybe my kid can fulfill my desires. Maybe my kid can live out the dream. And if my kid does that, then I'll feel like I'm a success because I produced that and I was responsible
And I
for that.
facilitated that.
Yes, 100%. I mean, she would say all the time, like, what was that show where it was like some show about like singers, and then they would show like their moms being the manager. It was like that was her dream. Like she loved that idea. It was like, and she would say to me all the time, like, of all my kids, like you could have it all, and like you could have everything. And it was so much pressure. It was just like, man, what if I never did that? Like,
Ah,
would you even care? And like where I'm living now, what I'm doing, like if she, because we don't have any communication, because the last thing, like I tried to have healthy conversations with her, and the last thing, like she got super mad and just wrote like done and blocked, and literally like I haven't talked to her since that was May of 2020. So like just yeah, super crazy stuff. So yeah, I just have like carried that where, and I've like felt it from everyone in my family where it's like everyone's trying to fix me, or everyone's trying to be like, you should be married or you should be this. And I'm like, what if I like living in South Dakota? Like, what if I like my, full-time 9 to 5 job? Like, what if I just want to get plugged into a healthy community and like I want to love God and love people? Like, I think that's a great life. Like, why is that not enough? Or like why, which I don't think it's not enough. Like I'm accepting that. It's like, hey, if that's what God has in my life, like I want to love God and love people and like be who he created me to be. Like, and if that's my life, that's an awesome life. Like that's what I want.
love that. And still, your logical brain knows that, and your little
Mhm.
girl is like, here's the measuring stick for my life, and it's way up here, and it's
Yeah.
over me my whole life, and I'm living down here comparatively, even
Mm,
though this is good, and so I'm constantly battling emotionally
Because I
this
never feel
standard.
permission to believe that that's good. Because I'm still living in response and reaction to what my mom taught me.
So even though your logic feels really healthy and good and powerful, and I love that, and that's a good place to camp, you
mhm.
got a girl that still has these crazy standards for being a famous singer and actress and model and whatever else. She's
Yeah.
all of this. And so if you need to take time to tend to that little girl and remind her, even on a daily basis, like you're so wanted. And if you never hit that standard, you're so much more than enough. And if every time a friend doesn't choose to hang out with you or appreciate you or love on you the way that you need it, I need to remind you that you're so much more than enough. And this actually has nothing to do with you.
And what if you ask God, like, am I in your spotlight?
Mm, that's good.
Like asking him questions of like, I actually, because that question of, or that pain that you felt with your friend sounds like the pain that you felt towards mom of
Right.
like, you see me though?
Yeah.
You see
Right.
someone see me? I'm doing
Right.
things that I thought were enough to be seen, but I still don't feel seen.
Right. Yeah, because it's like the whole time I knew, okay, but this isn't really me. It's like I felt very much like I lived this duplistic life where it was all about image, and it was like, we kept up the image like, oh, like the Gross family, we have it all together and we're doing great. But then like behind closed doors, it was just like dysfunctional. And like I would go back and visit from, because I lived in California, and I'd go back to Minnesota to visit. And it's like every time I'd go back, I'd just come back and I'd feel like crap. And like my best friend, she was the one who finally pointed it out. She's like, do you even want to go home? Like, you're so depressed whenever you come back. And it was like this family loyalty thing of like, oh, no, I can't not go back. But like, it was honestly the healthiest choice I made to not go back.
Yeah, it sounds like you've made really good, powerful, level-headed decisions. But I want you to keep coming back to like I know better, but my little girl doesn't.
Right. Right.
My little girl is my reality. And so because you have a pretty strong head on your shoulders, I want you to remember there's actually a little girl in here, and I need to take care of her, and I need to be tender with her. And
Right.
even if you spent the next, this is going to sound dramatic, but even if you spent the next 10 years focusing on loving your little girl, the time wouldn't be wasted. But the reality is, guys, for the next year, like, I'm going to learn to take care of her. It will start trickling into the rest of your life, and it will just become a normal.
Yeah.
I want that for you. And I think genuinely it'll be the thing that heals that wound that you feel in your relationships, where you're like, man, I want to be wanted and I don't know why. And I wish I didn't want this, but I need it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that feels really good because I think the disconnect has been like, okay, in my head, I'm like, I know this is truth, but like my heart is like, but I don't feel that at all. So I like making the connection of like a tangible thing of like talking with my little girl that helps me feel more connected than just talking in my heart. It's like, yeah, visualizing talking to my little girl that helps a lot. I'm sure.
I'm glad. I know Spence has one last
So
thing.
I just so Stacy, I want this to be for you, but I want this to be for everybody as well. Okay.
Yeah.
You're pulling on something that's really necessary and important. So I would love for you. I'm gonna mute you right now just so that you can have the privacy of your own home while I walk you through this. But everybody that's connecting with this, can you just wave at the camera? Like any capacity, you're like, totally, I've felt like this pain has come up in relationships or friendships or something, and it's just there. And no, it's like, what it feels like is every time you get into a deeper intimate relationship, this pain comes up, right? You're like, okay, I get into this one. And the deeper it gets, pain comes up. I get into this deep one, pain comes up. It could be with one sex, so it doesn't have to be just with, it can be just like, okay, it's just with men, not with women for some reason, but just with men. Or it can be just with women, not with men for some reason, but just with women. Or it can be with both sexes. It's like, it doesn't matter, but if you feel like that happens, where like I get into deep relationships and then this belief system takes over, and then every pain kind of pulls me back into I don't matter, or I'm not enough, or it's like this pain, there's like this theme that keeps coming up every time I have this big pain in that relationship and it feels high stakes. If that's you, I want you just to close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to take a few really deep breaths, and I want you to like slow down your inhale and slow down your exhale. So like if you can count to 6 with your inhale, count to 6 on your exhale. I want you to do that like for 8 breaths. Just big, long breaths. And I want you to put your hand on your heart too while you're doing that.
And it's actually better to do it in and out both through your nose, because it gets you into your parasympathetic more than doing it through your mouth.
Don't worry about having to think about anything. Don't worry about having to do this right. Just take deep breaths in and out and count to 6 on the way in and count to 6 on the way out. If you want to do it for 10 breaths, you're totally welcome to do that. Take your time on each breath. Keep your eyes closed. In a couple breaths, I want you just to keep your eyes closed, and you can let your breath return to normal as soon as you're done with those few breaths. And just be conscious of your breath when you're finished with those long inhales and long exhales. The goal is just to get you a little bit more present in your body, a little bit less present in your logic. Okay, and wherever you're at with the breathing, I want you just to let your breath return to normal. Just let your breath return to normal now. Keep your eyes closed with your hand on your heart. And I want you to actually take a moment to see yourself as a little girl in front of you. I want you to actually take a moment. You can see her from a picture that you remember of yourself, or you can remember a moment where you looked at yourself in the mirror when you were really young. She can be 4, 6, 7. Doesn't matter how old she is. I just want her to be really young. I want her to be a younger version of yourself. I want you to see her in front of you. However she was dressed, whatever her hair was like, I want you to remember what she looked like and just see her there in front of you. Maybe she was smiling and innocent. Maybe she was sad and heavy. Maybe she was craving something with a deficit. Maybe she was in pain. Maybe she was happy. I don't know. But I want you to see her there in front of you. I want you to connect with her. It's a little younger version of yourself that existed in your life. She was a human being. She went through pain. She went through life experiences. She tried to do her best to understand those life experiences, but I want you to see her there in front of you. Just take a moment to focus on her, see her as a real person, not just as an image, not just as a concept, not just as this ambiguous being. I want you to see her as a person. She's a real person. Maybe she had gone through real neglect or real rejection. I want you to see that little girl. I want you to see her. I want you to connect with her. I want you to maybe have some empathy and connect with what she was feeling at the time. Maybe she was experiencing things from mom or dad. She remember what she was believing about herself. Maybe you know more about what she was believing because what you've experienced in your life and relationships. I want you to connect with those things. She's sad? Was she angry? Was she already shut down? How sad would that be if she was shut down? I want you to see her, connect with her. If you were her older sister, how would you feel about her in her life? Would you want to protect her? Would you want to step up for her? Do you want to tell her things about her? Would you want to give her some truth? Do you want to save her from some of her pain? And I want you just to repeat a few things after me. Precious little girl, so sorry for the places where you felt like you weren't enough. I'm so sorry for the ways that you felt like you didn't matter. So sorry I agreed with that. I'm so sorry that I told you that you're not special. I'm so sorry for the ways that God loved you and I rejected it. I'm so sorry that I didn't tell you that you were special. Sorry for the ways that I told you that you didn't matter. I'm sorry for the places where I didn't agree with God's unconditional love for you. I'm sorry I didn't give you space to have painful emotions. I'm sorry for the ways that, like mom or dad maybe did, I shamed your emotions. I told you that you couldn't feel certain things. I'm sorry I told you you could only feel good emotions. I'm sorry for the pressure that you felt at such a young age. I'm sorry you felt like you had to get it right. Otherwise, people would leave. That God would leave. I'm sorry I told you that if you didn't get it right, that you'd be abandoned. Precious little girl, you were doing the best you knew how. You weren't supposed to know how to take care of yourself. You weren't supposed to know how to get it right. You weren't supposed to know how to process emotions perfectly. And you just needed love. And I'm sorry you didn't get it in the ways you needed it. But precious little girl, I want to do everything that I can to protect you and to partner with God's love for you. Precious little girl, you just needed love. I see you. And God sees you. And He's a good dad, and you can trust Him. And you don't have to repeat this, but I just want to say just a few things over you. God, I just thank you for every single woman on the call. And I just release, Father, your hand of love over them. God, you would remind them that they're just a little girl, that in the midst of eternity, that they're just starting out. They're just starting out. They're just starting. They don't have to have this thing down. That God, you planned for eternity, that they don't have to have this thing down. And I just release over every single woman on the call that you have permission to feel peace. You have permission to feel unconditional love in whatever state you're in right now, whatever pain you're experiencing. Just release God's love over your heart right now and over your situation. Amen.
So good. I see so many tears. all of this. I love it. If there was one most impactful piece of that for you, what was it? What did you hear that you were like, oh, I needed that so bad, and maybe you didn't even know it until you heard it? Oh, it's only the beginning. I love that. I think I just had my first encounter with the little girl, but I felt like she was trying to tell me I would be okay, what to do, like we were the same. I still didn't feel like the big one. Is that weird? No, that's not weird.
Not weird at all.
It depends on your level of connection and where you're at in your process. Raven said, my little girl needs more love than I do. She didn't know better. Yeah. You've learned how to survive without it. She hasn't yet. My little girl, oh wait, no, wrong one. We don't have to have it all together now. Yeah. For some reason, lately when I close my eyes, I go straight out of my body and I get dizzy, like I'm never going to come back.
Yeah, Allison, one thing that you can do like repeatedly is put your hand on your heart and just let yourself know like, hey, Allison, you can be in your body. Allison, you can be in your body
Or you
now.
can say, I'm safe. I'm safe here. I'm safe here.
Or you can say you have permission to be safe when you're safe.
That sounds just like dissociation, which is actually what most of us do. Dissociation is when we disconnect, we check out mentally, we go to Instagram, we sometimes leave our bodies. Who's felt like you're like outside of your body almost.
Or when like even when you're staring at the computer, it starts to look like it's 10 feet away all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different forms of dissociation, and that's one of them. And it's actually a protector. It's a coping skill because we don't know how to deal with our pain. And being present feels scary and we don't feel safe inside of ourselves. And so what do? You check out.
I just won't form attachments with people or anything because I don't need to. I'm perfectly fine over here.
So what you want to do is start creating some safety for yourself and reminding yourself like, hey, I want to be safe for you. You're safe here. Beth said that I don't have to have it right by now. I'm just starting out in eternity. I love that. Telling my little girl she wasn't supposed to know. I wasn't supposed to know how to handle emotions. Yeah, no one ever taught you guys. No one ever taught us. I haven't ever been able to actually see me as a little girl before. Wow.
Marilys, that's amazing.
You were only doing the best that you could. I love all of that. This is so good. I
There's a
want
lot.
to get to at least one more question, so we're gonna jump forward because I want to make time for
And
that.
and Stacy, I wasn't rushing past you, but I could feel that when what you were speaking into, there's an invitation for, just everybody that was resonating with what you're sharing. But did you feel like covered and taken care of in your question?
She's like, where my unmute button at?
Exactly. No, I honestly, I love that. That makes my heart really happy because I feel like that's one of the beautiful things about this group is that like it's these deep wounds that like so many of us can resonate with. So yeah, I felt very taken care of and I loved that it resonated with people. So yeah, that was awesome. Thank you guys so much.
You're doing a really good job.
Big time.
You're so not alone in what you're processing through, and your little girl just needs, for all of us, really, like a lot of the remedy is our little girls need all of the things that they never got in their childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Got to figure out what it is and how to give it to them.
Our little, like for me, our little boy and girl is trying to find the thing we never got in our adult lives. We're like, maybe in this relationship I can get it. Maybe in this marriage I can get it. Maybe here I can get it. And it's like, no, it still wasn't enough. Oh, here, it still wasn't enough.
Stacy, thanks for letting us into your process. We loved it. It was such a gift for us.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you, ladies. Just, yeah, there's something about this has been like the first community that I felt like I actually belong in. It's been really beautiful. So thank you guys.
That so good.
So good.
Makes me happy.
There's something powerful in your life too. Like just when you were talking, I was like, there's something powerful in your life just for helping others and loving others.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for your journey. It's gonna be so
Me
powerful.
too.
Thank you guys so much. That means a lot.
You're welcome. I think it's Krista whose question I started to answer or ask. Krista Morton, you said you're here because I saw your name. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So Krista, you wrote in and you said that you're feeling severely triggered around your ex and you feel the inability to move forward. You feel like there's emotional trauma attached and deep-rooted chains and you feel powerless in it. Is there anything else that you want to share about that?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for like doing, this process with me. And I'm so grateful. I usually work on Thursday nights and Megan, I'm in New Jersey too. And I despise the snow. We'll have to connect, but I despise the snow, but I'm loving it tonight because I get to be here and work is canceled. So, but in this process, I broke up with him about 8 months ago and dove into this journey. And the man that I was dating was not a believer. And we had actually gone forward. He had come a long way. We dated for like a year and a half, started talking about marriage and started talking about getting engaged and moving to South Carolina next year. And I just felt like God put the brakes on things in my spirit. I like really deeply believed that he was going to save this man. And if you didn't know me personally, you probably would think that I'm new age. I'm a yoga instructor. I'm an integrative health coach. I love everything holistic health, but I love Jesus. And we connected I felt like God created us for each other and like brought us from these two ends of the spectrum. And I mean, he started coming to church with me and just all these different things that felt like, wow, like God's really aligning us. And then when it came down to committing to marriage, it was like this gut feeling in me that said, no, like you have dreamed for, a Christ following man your whole life. Like this is not it. And I just, it's so bizarre. I should have felt initially I felt really good about that. And I started actually kind of just casually dating around Christian men and had really bad experiences. And it triggered me to just want to keep going back. And I mean, the amount of times that I've run into him and crossed paths with him is pretty ridiculous, like 15 times, like something ridiculous like that since we've broken up. And I just feel like everywhere I go, I'm anticipating that trigger. It doesn't matter if it's a song, a place, a smell, like just memories come up and it never gets less intense. Like my reaction is just like the breakup happened yesterday. And I've done so much work to try to heal from this. And I don't understand the intensity to which it keeps popping up.
Yeah. I'm curious first. I have a lot of compassion for you because I have experienced similar feelings and sensations with someone I wasn't even officially dating. And that was brutal and humiliating.
I mean, just having prophetic words around,
Yeah.
This person.
But I'm curious because we can, like, I heard you said, like, I heard you say, I have this gut feeling that I shouldn't be with him. Can you clarify a little more of like, what did that feel like? What's the belief behind that? What did God sound like to you inside of that? So I have more context.
Yeah. When we would talk about marriage, I just got this, like, for me, it almost comes over like a wave of anxiety. Like I can feel that like kind of rush in the back of my head, like pit of my stomach feeling. Like I just almost like I was going to cross my fingers and pray that our differences in belief that Jesus is the only way would not get in the way in the future. And it was definitely a fear that I would be choosing into something that wasn't God's best for me. And I think the hardest thing is I didn't break things off because I wasn't in love with him and didn't love him. And I still do love him. And now it's like this, me and God are like in this fight because I'm resenting, my faith for driving us apart, I guess. So yeah, I guess maybe that was a tangent, but to clarify, it's like an anxiousness.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I might make this more swirly for you for a minute. But I know we both have heard a lot about like, well, I didn't feel peace on it, or all of a sudden when it came to thinking about getting married or this, or just didn't feel good about it, or I felt fear, or whatever it was.
And we functioned like that a lot of our lives.
A lot of it. But I'm asking this question and I'm sharing what I'm about to share because I want to challenge and push back, because regardless of if I give you something that feels helpful for you tonight or not, wow, English, even being pressed and challenged in these things can help solidify some of our beliefs and feelings and desires. Yeah. So even if I'm doing the opposite, I want to push a little bit. A lot of us think and believe, especially in the Christian circle, that like, if I don't feel peace on this, that must mean that God's not on it, or it must mean that this is bad, or it must mean that we're not equally yoked, or whatever it is. Now, I personally don't think I could marry a man that wasn't a believer. I'll just say that for myself. This is my disclaimer. I needed to have a man that had history with God, so I felt like I could share that part of my life. I needed someone that felt bigger than me, that I felt safe with, that I could relate with in that we could explore God together. I didn't want to feel alone in my intimacy with God. So that was a non-negotiable for me. And I think it's beautiful for you ladies. If that's a non-negotiable for you, I think that that's great. And I'm not challenging that or saying that you shouldn't have that.
And there's no formulaic non-negotiables that you should have.
There's not.
It's just what do I want?
But a lot of us have this thing where we're like, I don't have peace on this, or I had anxiety about this. And sometimes we can interpret that as God not being on something, or involved in something, when actually when we're breaching or reaching that point of commitment, it actually is triggering all of our pain and beliefs about commitment and relationships and marriage. And then we saw our parents who maybe were both believers, who both were equally yoked, and you saw an equally dysfunctional relationship. And so now all of your pain and trigger points around marriage and commitment and intimacy are getting poked on. And so it's really important. I like challenging what we feel like we felt or heard God on, because a lot of the times, especially as Christians, we use God as a cop out to not deal with all of our bad triggers and belief systems. And it's real, and God is involved in it too. And no one else can tell you what's God and what's your own trigger. Seriously, I can't. Spencer couldn't. My hope is that you'll go on the journey for all of you and figure out, like, okay, now I know what that was inside myself. But what I want to push back on and explore is like, and maybe I'm not asking you this question, I'll be more direct whenever I get there with you, Krista. But like what I want to push back on is that sometimes we have triggers around this topic, and there are times that it's actually not God. It's pain in us that's getting poked on that we're really afraid to visit. And so we use the God card in things. And I've even, like, I had a guy that told me, I just don't feel peace on it. And maybe that was the Lord, and thank God that he did that, because otherwise I wouldn't have married Spencer. But I knew that it was such a cop out. I knew that he was afraid of commitment. I knew that he was afraid of the level of intimacy and connection that happened, which I get. It was really scary. It was too much, way too fast. But there are things that happen that I think are really healthy to push back on and explore. So I just want to say that first before we go anywhere else.
So with all of that being said, because I hear Sammy saying, let me throw all of this at you so that you can kind of feel the challenge and then speak into it. Here's what I'm feeling about that. Because it's like, it is good to become aware of, like, I do have these fears around relationship, but I still in the midst of that was feeling this. And I think it's good to like search within that of like, I'm still aware of these things that are going on within my process. So I'm curious, in the midst of her sharing all of that.
When I challenge that, which I actually don't feel like I'm challenging you, I just wanted to say it, but when I challenge that, what are thoughts that come up? How do you feel in that?
I definitely think that I have a lot of fear around just in general failure. And so the idea of marriage was like really scary for me, even though it's something that I very much wanted. The idea that it could potentially fail because of our differences in beliefs surrounding God was like super scary for me. And I felt like I knew that there were a lot of things. I'm gonna seem like it's like just a fresh wound. It's like there's a lot of things that I knew I needed to sort through emotionally, which is why I came here. But I also felt that in that moment that like, okay, if a God-fearing man is something I prayed for my whole life, then this must not be it. Like it doesn't line up. And I in that same token, I'm like, is God trying to break my box? Because I'm not the person that I was when I prayed for that at 13. And so I'm trying to navigate that. And it's really hard for me to tell if, I'm standing on like solid truth, or if I'm just growing into a different person now. And I denied myself because of my own self-judgment and my judgment on my 13-year-old self, who had expectations of what her future husband should be.
Damn, girl, what kind of counseling you been going to? That's good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Very good process, and we're just with you in it, and I'm exploring with you. Does ex-boyfriend, does he think that God doesn't exist? Can you give me like a short synopsis about God?
Yeah, so I grew up like super sheltered, like for context for me, like homeschooled Christian, like in said bubble. then went to college for dance performance and integrative health as my postgrad. So it was like a Christian girl enters real world. Like, here you are. So it literally swing, right? So when I met him through yoga, and he came from this opposite end. He grew up Catholic and was super scarred by the church, and denied any type of religious affiliation, and then became very like spiritual through yoga. So when we met our first date, I would have never considered going on a date with a guy that like didn't acknowledge God in the past. And so I've literally, even looking back, I'm like, I have no idea how this happened. But he was like, I will burn if I step foot in a church. He went from that to a year and a half into dating, coming to church with me, acknowledging God. We would like do devotions every day. His hang up was on Jesus. Like he was like, well, Jesus is a part of my team, but like in his mind, like Jesus was also kind of like the equivalent to Buddha, kind of the equivalent to all of these other, things. And so that for me, like really rocked my spirit, because there was a lot of tension when we would have conversations. And being that that's such a huge part of my life, I was like, I just don't know how I don't feel safe having conversations about God with you. And that bothers me.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Also, like, has anyone in this group like gone from being Catholic to being like F the church and Jesus? Or maybe not quite that extreme.
Danielle's like, yep.
I
see you.
Whether it's like Catholicism or Christianity or Mormonism or whatever it is, when we come out of extreme religion, when we're actually like disconnected from relationship and intimacy and freedom, and it's actually all about rules and religion and performance, it feels very normal and understandable when we go on a journey that we need to break away from all of that and just be like, I just want love. There's this thing in us, in our core, where we know we're created for love, that like a pendulum swing after coming out of that doesn't frighten me, where it sounds, I pushed back the way I did initially because I can feel that the guy has a good heart. Like, it seems like he's got a really great heart. Now, I don't know if he's your husband material or not, but I love that he's on a search for love. And I think that if he's not hardened and shut down towards God and searching and seeking for God in general, that God will probably find him. Like, that's just my ultimate belief. I'm actually not afraid of people that don't proclaim Jesus, because I'm like, if they're open, Jesus is going to find them. A lot of Christians get in their own self-righteousness of like, I found God. I pursue God. I seek God. I proclaim Christianity. When actually our walk with God is supposed to be his pursuit of us, and us just being like, oh, you found me. I was lost for all of these years and you found me. Love came and got me.
But I totally get in the context of like, this is a person I want to marry.
Yes.
Going, but who do I want to marry? And do I want them to have a little bit more history around a process that feels safe for me? Because safety within marriage, and I will say, you're in charge of your own safety. You're in charge of your own feeling of safety, but safe enough with a person to be able to build intimacy is important. And I think it's really cool that you were aware of like, oh, I actually started feeling unsafe in my conversations around God and my intimacy with God in this particular relationship. And I think that's great.
Can we talk about the Christians that we know that married each other because they were Christians, and then things that happened after?
Right. The other thing is banking on Christianity to be your safety. Okay, so like we have numerous couples that we've either counseled, or friends of ours that have come to us in their massive pain that had thought, oh, their relationship with God made me feel safe. But then 10 years in, or 5 years in,
or a year in, they thought we're like-minded, we're equally yoked, we're both believers, but then pain surfaces and we all react out of our pain to what comes to the surface, the reality of our wounds. And so we know people, like I know of church leaders who are pedophiles. And I know of their spouse who decided, I'm going to go new age because I'm so burnt from Christianity and my spouse being a pedophile and never telling me that I actually don't trust Christianity as a whole now.
Yeah.
So there's like, I just want to break that box, because you can't bank on the person you marry staying the same, no matter if they start a Christian or end a Christian.
Can I just clarify what
Yeah.
you just said?
Yeah.
So about a month ago, we had friends. We had heard about the divorce that they went through, and basically on their honeymoon, the guy said, and this was a guy that was a leader in church for years and years and years, and around purity movement and all this different stuff. And on their honeymoon says, "Hey, I've been attracted to."
He said, "Do you ever find
Do you ever find
children
children
attractive?" And she says, like kids beautiful? He says, "No, like attractive." And she says, "No, I never found them attractive." And she obviously had a lot of red flags happening. And instead of getting her marriage annulled, she just went to church leadership to try to get help.
And they swept it under the rug. Nothing
got addressed. And so they eventually end up getting divorced. And he blamed her for going new age, and she blamed him for being a pedophile. Wow. And this is not like an abnormal scenario, you guys. A lot of us aren't hearing what's actually going on with even influential, like healthy people,
like church leaders.
And so I don't say it to burst the bubble, because we both love Jesus and have intimacy with Jesus and have intimacy with each other, and we deal with our shit, you guys. So it's possible and it's there. You just can't bank on someone and their walk with God. It won't actually give you the safety that you want it to long term necessarily. So I want to add that into your process, which might make it more confusing for you right now, Krista. But it also could either solidify some things for you where you're like, okay, I know I don't want to be with him. Or it can challenge and be like, man, was this my own self-judgment? Did I need him to fit into my box? Or am I actually okay with him being on a journey and me exploring things with him until I feel safe enough to move into a future with him? Was it my gut, or was it actually just fear? Like, what I would want is for you to continue to get challenged in that, so that you can just get really aware of like what was motivating me in that decision, so that you can know moving forward, whether it's him or another guy, what you actually want.
Yeah, it's so funny that you bring that up. There's like so many things that you just said in that blurb that I had broken up with him 3 months into our relationship, and the way that he got me back was he was an actuarial science person before he got into yoga. So he made me this equation that, you know, he made like God equals love equation, Jesus equals God, then they're both the same. So everything's pointing back to love. And I was like, okay, I'll give it another try. And because you can't argue math. So, but a couple of months ago, I actually, because he had asked to get back with me like 3 times after we broke up. And I said, no. Even though I still loved him, I was like playing it cold, like I'm over it, we're good. And then when I started digging into my process, I realized like I really had some stuff, and I went down that road of like, I really think this was all my self-judgment. And I went back to him to try to have a conversation. And he was kind of like, hey, listen, like we don't want the same things anymore. Like I realize I don't want to raise kids in a church. And actually one of my first date questions now would be, are you a Christian? And if the answer is yes, that would be my last date with that person. And just like all of these things that I think that like really dug a wrench into me. And I think I'm carrying the guilt of like, now that I know that it was my own self-judgment that I like messed something up, even though I know God's plan is sovereign. And then also the guilt that like I scarred him over again. Like I hit him over the head with a baseball bat again with like Christianity, when he had been scarred many times in the past. So yeah, it's just, whew. But you touched on a lot of points that were like validating on those things. So thank you.
It's also not your, like, you can take ownership for the ways that you could have negatively affected him with your mindsets, but it's also still not your responsibility. No. You can clean up your mess, but carrying that responsibility of like, now I'm at fault for furthering your root wound towards Christianity. It's like, no, I'm just a human. And yeah, I make mistakes. Yes, I judge people. I judge myself my whole life. So of course I did that. I'm going to clean up my mess now. Like that's all we can do as humans.
Like,
And
I don't even take responsibility for Sammy's pain. You know, there's ways that I affect her, but there's also ways that she brought pain into the ways that I affect her
Mhm.
from her past, from her childhood.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
There's
our
things
goal,
he's not responsible for that affect me, that he
Right.
actually didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he brought a history into your relationship. Oh, it just froze for a second. He brought a history into your relationship that you had nothing to do with, right?
Yeah.
And you don't actually have control over his relationship with God.
This is one thing that I want to hit on is like, even you guys in marriage with Spencer, we both have pain towards the church that we've been on a journey of healing from. The church can really warp you and mess you up. Religious people can warp you and mess you up. And so he, especially when I met him when we were friends, was in a huge pendulum swing where he was like, F the church, F religion, I'm sick of Christians talking in my face. And I was like, whoa, I need a man that's gonna like lay on the floor and worship Jesus with me for like 4 hours. You're not gonna touch me with a 10-foot pole. We're just gonna be friends. And we're not gonna do that. And over years, I learned like, actually, you really, really love God. You actually just got burned. But one point I want to make is finding a man that's choosing into a growth and healing journey is life change. That's what marriage is healing together and growing together and being willing to change and lean in towards God, towards healing, towards freedom. Because we're all in life going to be like this no matter what. But still, marrying a man that had history with God, who was raised in the church, who like we've both seen tons of beautiful miracles, signs, and wonders. We've seen people get out of wheelchairs. Like we've done the stuff, you guys. Still, I have had a high need in different moments to try to control him into having more relationship with God. So even if you marry a believer, that thing in you that wants to control someone to make you feel safe, that thing isn't going to go away. And so ultimately, which like I'm still a believer for being equally yoked. So like, let me have two opposing thoughts here. I'm not saying don't marry a believer. I think that's a great thing. But there is not just one truth, I don't think. You're always going to go on that journey of like, how do I come to a place of surrender and relinquishing control and trusting? That might look like me laying on my floor just saying, God, will you pursue Spencer in a way that feels so undeniably like to come closer to you, where he feels so pulled to you, where his heart feels tendered to you? Will you soften him and make him hungry for you again? God, will you help me relinquish control so I don't feel the need to force him to be in a certain place that he's not in? Like, I think that's a beautiful part that has nothing to do with the other person and has everything to do with our need for safety and trying to control our way into it. That journey won't go away no matter who you marry.
Yeah.
No matter how they believe, no matter what their history is. And so I think that that's a beautiful thing to hold in tension while you're in the journey, is like, I might just decide that Christianity and being equally yoked is a non-negotiable, and that's fine if I choose that. But it won't be void of pain. It won't be void of me feeling that pain of like, I need safety or like, I want to control this person. I'm still going to have to go on the journey. And I think that that's it. I think it's just getting familiar with like, what do I want? And like, how am I going to choose? For me, it looked like choosing a man that was willing to grow no matter what, willing to get help and leadership and counsel and go after his stuff, because I knew ultimately that if we're willing to do that, we'll find God. God will find us in that place if we're willing to look at ourselves. And so I think that that's all my thoughts. But did any of that feel helpful for you? You feel like you got some good takeaways?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate all of that so much. And yeah, I feel like a little bit lighter. Yeah, I know I need to dig into that process and just figure out, where I'm at, my non-negotiables, and not feel guilty for them. So thank you.
I think the way we approach this with you is that you'd completed the program and you seem like you've gotten a lot of healing internally.
Yeah.
But I think it just felt like, oh, let's step into a dialogue,
Give
within
you some pushback.
this thing that you kind of brought up. Because sometimes you just need dialogue around something to kind of sort out, okay, I heard this, I feel this. Okay, I said this, but I believe this. Okay, they challenge this. I do believe that, but I maybe feel more this way. Like dialogue kind of helps you arrive more to a place where you're like, this is my starting position for
You can
process.
solidify what you want and believe.
I think what's so crazy about marriage, now that we have been 3 years into it ourselves, and we have, we've counseled some marriages. We've also been around marriages that have been in turmoil,
Let me just say
that have
too,
come back together.
we don't try to counsel married people. That's why we work with single Christian women, because we've been married for 3 years.
Yeah,
So
right.
like we don't
We're
think
still
that
babies in it.
we don't
but,
think that we're pros in marriage.
but we offer help and feedback when people do come to us in ways that we feel like we're able to.
Yeah.
And then we've seen marriages that have ended in separation, not because of our influence, we're just adding in love where we feel like we have the ability to. And among all of that, there are so many moments where I've seen them like, you actually cannot have control in marriage. Marriage is an incubator for relinquishing control, adopting surrender, and learning to love. And it's a place where you can learn how to relinquish control, adopt surrender, and learn how to love. Marriage is a place where, regardless if you chose the right person or the wrong person, it is still something that is an incubator helping you become more like you. But that's up to you.
More like love.
All the time. It's just like anything else. You do not abandon your relationship with God or yourself in the midst of a crappy marriage, right? And if you do, then there's more healing and process to do on the other side of that marriage. Marriage, oftentimes, you don't have control over how it ends up. Like there have been really painful moments where internally I've had to go, if Sammy decides to divorce me, I'm going to continue to stay in this and love her. And it's feelings. It's just big emotions, just high stakes feelings and emotions in a moment. But I'm making a commitment and decision in that moment that I choose and I want.
Do you ever think I'm going to divorce you?
I mean, there's been early in our marriage.
When I didn't talk to you for 2 days.
Oh, totally.
That was one time.
She talked about flying to Mexico, and
it was like, it's time to run. Danger, leave.
Yeah, but there's other people that have even more painful experiences than ours, because we've had a long, extensive process before marriage. But all that to say is, like, no matter what, my goal in my life is not to abandon myself. Like, my goal in my life is not to abandon myself. God is always with me. What does it look like to recognize that? What does it look like to partner with him in that?
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like to have self-control? Like, the only fruit of the Spirit that involves control is self-control, right? Control in any other way is actually abuse. It's actually the other kingdom.
Someone just said, how do you learn to recognize when you are controlling? It's when you have fear. Every time you notice fear in your life, you know that you're partnered with control, because control only stems from fear.
That's why it's so good, you guys, to become aware of where there's fear in your life, because you can judge all of your behaviors all you want, but changing behaviors isn't the thing that's going to fix it all, because you have to focus on a million behaviors. But if you actually understand, like, oh, I've been scared of this thing the whole time.
Yeah, you can get to the
now
heart.
I can recognize the absence of love.
Which means,
when did that fear start? Oh, childhood here. Oh, it started with mom. I actually never felt like XYZ. Yeah. I need to love that little girl. I need to find out where God wants to love me. I need to partner with his love in that moment, because that's where there was a void.
Yeah, so good, babe. I know that we're over time. Did you guys get anything out of this? Did this feel helpful for you? Yeah. Yay. Krista, thank you for sharing. I know that we poked and prodded. I know we shared a lot of conflicting and opposing beliefs. For any of you that heard like opposing thoughts where you're like, they believe that you should marry an unbeliever, like, don't come to conclusions based off of one sentence of something that we said. Like,
I would be miserable, and the girl would be miserable if I ever married an unbeliever.
Just like hold the truth in tension, that there are like a lot of opposing things that we have to hold in tension constantly. And so we don't think that there's one right way. I think it's all a process of discovering and learning love and figuring out where God is and where we are in it. But Krista, I know that you were trying to respond. Did this feel helpful for you? You feel like you got something out of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really value the pushback, because that's where I'm at in my heart right now. So by receiving that, it's the true me wants to come up and be like, no, but wait, this is what I want. So that was very helpful for me, to almost like reverse psychology, because that's what I've been doing to myself. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.
I love that.
I love your process too. I think it's beautiful. And I think that there's so much judgment against the new age, but I see the new age as just finding God in everything. And I think that there are really beautiful aspects to that, where I'm like, I think that God's going to find those people. And I don't think it needs to look like the box of religion and Christianity either. I think God's just going to show up, because I think he's bigger than that. And so I love the journey that you're on, and I want you to trust yourself too, and trust your gut, even if your gut says don't do this. I want you to trust that and keep leaning in. But I feel proud of you and how you're navigating through all of this, and we're in your corner.
Yeah, totally.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Just real quick, I know we're over time, but I'd love to pray for you guys one last time. Before I think we're moving into breakout rooms, right?
Breakout rooms.
Cool. But yeah, I'd love to pray for you ladies, and just take a few minutes. So if you could just, I know it's late for some of you, so don't fall asleep. If you need to keep your eyes open, just like pry them open. But if you can close your eyes and stay awake.
Julie's like, I got this.
I know.
Also,
Ariana's
Laura,
like, I don't know.
look at Laura with her pink pillow. Laura's got her fluffy pink pillow. She's like, I'm good.
Ariana, I got you. So if you just close your eyes and if you'd like, you can put your hand on your heart. Here's the reason I like to put my hand on my heart, is because I'm such a logical thinker that it helps me remember that I have a heart. I'm like, oh yeah, I can actually get present with my emotions and stuff.
Pray your prayer, boy.
I just think people think funny things when I say things.
I do too.
Cool. So close your eyes, or otherwise it won't work. Just kidding. Yeah, God, I just thank you for being such a good lover of our souls, and you are our pursuer, and you're the one that sees us in every single part of our lives, and you stay here, and you don't leave, and you don't abandon us. You're actually the only one that has seen every single bit of our lives and will not abandon us. You've seen everything. You've turned every rock upside down. You've seen every hidden part of our lives, everything that we've shamed, everything that we've drawn accusation over. You've seen it. And you've still decided that I won't abandon my children. You've still decided I won't leave them. You've still decided, no matter how much I see of my kids, no matter how much they think they're failing, no matter how much they've shamed themselves, nothing can keep my love from them. That you not only said that with words, but you actually paid for it with your blood. That you bankrupted heaven to demonstrate how much you're willing to not abandon your kids. That you love your kids so deeply that you're with us. You're in the midst of our pain. You're in the midst of our joy. You're in the midst of our love. You're in the midst of our fears. That King David said that if I go down into Sheol, you're there. There's nothing that can keep us from you. That God, you're so good that you're here in our midst. And I just pray over every single woman that they would feel that just a little bit more today. They'd feel that just a little bit more tonight. They experience you just a little bit more in their lives. That you're such a good God. You're a faithful God, that you said in Timothy, even if we're faithless, you're faithful. I thank you, God, that you're just that good. That you're a God of grace and mercy.
And one thing that I've learned about connection with God is that the more I get connected with me, feels like the pipes are clear for me to get connected with God, for him to just flow. And so while your hand is on your heart, I want you to say heart, or you could say your name, or you can say little girl, whatever resonates with you. What's one thing that you need this week to feel connected to me? And I want you to pay attention to what you hear, what you feel, what you sense, what you see. Pay attention to all of your senses. And then as soon as you get an answer, you can either bookmark it in your head or you could write it down. And then if you got an answer where you're like for me, I heard the answer this week, rest. I knew I just was like spinning internally. And I just was like, okay, well, I gotta work. So what does rest look like? And I knew that it looked like proactively slowing down and getting connected to myself in all of the in-between moments that I could. For me, that looks like some stretching and getting in my body and some breath work. One of the mornings this week, I knew like I need to be in the Word. Like I needed scripture to feel like an anchor, and I don't need that every day. I listen to what I'm needing. I listen to my relationship with God. I flow. I don't hold myself to standards of what it needs to look like every single day. I flow with God. One day it looked like listening to worship, and I like danced in my living room while I read the Bible at the same time. And that created so much. I literally did it. I did it for like 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, I feel rested now. I feel so good now. I feel connected again. And then the next day I did yoga. I didn't read the Bible at all, but I talked to God and I loved on him. So once you hear your answer, I want you to ask yourself, you might need to close your eyes and put your hand on your heart again. What does that look like for you this week? With whatever you heard, what does that look like for you this week? Or how can I take care of you in that? It's a lot like a marriage, your relationship with yourself. If your husband is with you and you're feeling like, man, I really need a date night. So you tell him, I really need a date night this week. If he doesn't do it after you communicated your need, it'd feel like broken trust. It could feel painful. You're like, I put myself out there, I shared what I needed, and the need didn't get met. Now there's room for that person to clean up their mess, but relationship with ourself and connection with ourself is built with trust. So once you figure out what you need and you figure out how to meet it, it's really important to follow through on that to build trust and safety. For me, when I tell Spencer, I really need a date night, I really need connection. When he listens to that and honors that and initiates it later on in the week, I'm like, my man, I love you. I feel so good. I feel pursued. I feel connected. I feel safe now. And now we can just be and flow like normal. You need to follow through on connection with yourself if you want to cultivate safety inside of yourself and trust with yourself. So I want you to write down those things that your heart said it needed. And if you're like me, you might need to throw it in your calendar and set a reminder for every day this week to make sure you do it at some point. But I want you to follow through on connection with yourself. And I want you to trust that your connection with God will increase and heighten and become amazing as you get more connected with yourself. It's an ebb and flow. It's an exchange. It's the byproduct. Does that feel helpful for you? Yeah. Ladies, we love you. Thanks for spending your night with us. I feel so proud of you. This is not an easy journey. there's not a lot of people that give their nights over to healing and growing and learning and getting self-aware. Seriously, you're a dime a dozen. And so we just feel really thankful and honored that you would just be a part of this with us. And we don't think we have all the answers. We don't think that we're perfect. We don't feel like we've arrived in this. We're constantly learning in this. And so it just feels like a gift that you would trust us and partake in this journey with us. And we're going to split you up into breakout rooms. I'll let Taylor go over what breakout rooms are, but you're welcome to stay if you want to be in a breakout room. And Tay, if you could just share what I normally share about breakout rooms, that would be amazing. And then if you want to stay and be a part of them after she shares, you're welcome to. But we will see you next Thursday.
Some of you guys look so cozy. I feel like I'm gonna fall asleep just looking at you.
All right, ladies, we love you. Tay, if you could take over, we will see you next week. Can everyone unmute yourself and say bye?
Bye.
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 Thank you so much.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, so sweet. Okay, friends. Yeah, so this is just the small group at the end. And so I'm going to break you out into breakout rooms, and there'll probably be like 7 to 8 people in each room. And then it'll be open until 9:30 my time. So that's about 40 minutes of just chatting away. So I'm going to break you out into your rooms now and have fun.
Taylor, I just wanted to say hi. I can't stay, but I wanted to say
Hi.
hi.
I don't know who's saying hi, but hello.
Charlie.
Hi, guys. Have a good night. Love you so
too.
much.
Love you too.